Okay, hello everyone. Bonjour, bonsoir, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're going to get started in just a moment. If you feel free to say hello from wherever you are, because I know we have those calling in from one part of the world or several parts of the world. Let's see if we can cover every region.
Sure. I'll kick it off.
See any hellos, bonjours, bon dia.
Hello from Denmark. Can you hear me, Karina?
Great. Yeah, can hear you loud and clear. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I got it. It's a little bit metallic. I don't know if that if I'm the only one, then it's probably my connection.
Okay, it might be because I don't have a microphone.
Kia ora, Steve Corbett from New Zealand.
Oh, great.
It's early in the morning for me.
Bright and early. It's great. We have the live hellos. I like that better than the chat. It's nice.
Hi, Andrea here from Spain.
Ah, hola.
Hi, hola. Hi. I have Karina, I have a problem. I might have to go at 6:30. We're here now in Spain, currently in Spain, okay? Will that be a problem? Will I miss loads of things? I'm really concerned. I have an emergency that I can't.
We'll record. No problem. We've got a recording. So everybody will make sure that you have one.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we better kick it off. We had a lot of registers, but we'll see if they make it a bit later. So welcome to Are You Ready to Lead Innovation Around the World? This is our ISPIM webinar. Very excited to deliver this topic to you through ISPIM. And it's one of the leading global innovation organizations, in which I've had the opportunity to be actively involved. So excited to have this opportunity to deliver the webinar. So today, what we'll go through is a quick intro, introduce myself and my colleague, Brian Cooley. Some of you know me. I see some familiar faces out there. As I mentioned, I have a strong link to ISPIM. I'm a co-founder, co-leader of the Innovation Leadership SIG at ISPIM. My background is in leading initiatives, and international initiatives, especially for multinational firms, for business schools. So I've worked on a lot of initiatives from new products and services to new programs, and have worn many hats. So I've moved from corporate in an international context to consulting, to founding a Global Minds Network, which is an international advisory focused on global readiness solutions, and then also academic world. So I am a professor in global innovation and leadership at Neoma Business School in France. So I bring all of this together for my focus and interest in looking at how can we lead effectively around the world. And so my specialty is around global innovation, leadership, and multicultural collaboration. I'm, as I mentioned, the International Advisory's Global Minds Network, and our purpose is to prepare leaders and teams to collaborate and innovate for global and local impact. We're finding that we're in a very dynamic, complex world. It's multicultural, it's digitally connected. We need better solutions to address these big, wicked challenges around the world. And so we need better solutions to bring teams together and optimize talent and knowledge from across cultures and across functions. So our team is inspired to do that. All of our advisors and leaders bring extensive international experience. They're change makers around the levers of global innovation, leadership, cross-cultural collaboration, and digital transformation. So I'm going to introduce my colleague, Brian Cooley, who is our global innovation and marketing leader.
Thank you, Karina. Pleased to meet everyone today. Yeah, I've had the fortunate opportunity of working in global marketing and innovation teams with a couple Fortune 200 companies, and have been with Global Minds Network now for 5 years. And continue to work with a number of organizations from startups all the way through to multinational companies around their global initiatives and making sure that they work more effectively. I think it's been a good ride, and I really appreciated leading global innovation teams and global innovation initiatives and sort of the idiosyncrasies that come in leading those, particularly as it relates to the function of leadership and coordination, communication, and culture across multinational teams. So with that, I thought I'd start with a story whereby I had the opportunity to bring a new product to market with Kimberly-Clark during my time there that happened to be in the industrial wiper category, and in particular for the industry of food processing, which would occur everywhere around the world. Everyone needs to eat. Everyone's got facilities that need to manufacture and produce food for their populations. And one of the key things that we found in that project was the fact that we really had an organization that were in different places in their business development and their market penetration. But probably more importantly, the means by which food processing actually got done on a country to country basis, region to region basis was very different. And so we had to be very astute as it related to practices, processes, regulatory environments, et cetera. And that required a lot of input and coordination across our global teams as we brought those global initiatives to market so that we could most effectively address the local need while at the same time being able to produce the product with global scale and global efficiency. So through that, no doubt the importance of individual leadership, but also team leadership is very important, as well as the recognition of how leadership is executed culturally and with customers is different, and ensuring that you have the right communication within your own internal teams to drive that forward, I think is very important. So with that, we were able to be very successful once we brought that to market. And a lot of that success was frankly driven by the upfront engagement that we had with our teams. So with that, I thought we would also share some information that we've been able to generate with some work that we've done in the marketplace by surveying organizational innovation leaders such as yourselves. And we've seen that through that readiness study, that the top priorities that innovation leaders tell us is that they really need to work on team and project collaboration. That's very important. They need to ensure strategic alignment across the geographies, but also the functions within the organization. Leadership development is very important for those individuals who've maybe had experience in one or two countries or markets to be able to enhance those skills as they move into global or pan-regional roles. And then also improvements around the global innovation process can always occur. And a lot of that has to be driven through a global innovation culture where everyone feels that they are part of that same global innovation team. With that, we were able to dig a little bit deeper into actual global innovation projects and some of the challenges that organizations have with the development of their initiatives and their projects. And I think two of the areas that we saw the greatest, at least, weaknesses in terms of key categories was initiative and risk taking, and execution and project process. So those were the two areas where there was the greatest amount of weaknesses. But if you really look across all five of these macro areas, there can be definitely significant improvements that can be brought forward across innovation teams. And then lastly, as we look to knowledge sharing, which is an important component that we identified on the previous slide, when you look at inside the area of knowledge sharing, what are some of the challenges that organizations have, team leaders have with their group? You can see that it's quite high with a lot of these categories. The feedback process, ensuring that they're taking enough risk to initiate across their business. How do they effectively share ideas and do so in a safety environment and have the support of leadership to be able to bring those ideas forward? Ensuring that there's the right communication between leaders and the teams, and that the leaders are highly engaged and aware of what is being conducted within the team work and across the multiple regions that you're working with. And then lastly, communication style. And I think it's important for for all of us that are in global roles or aspire to be in global roles, that working on your communication style is very important given the cultural nuances of how people give and receive information across their sort of their nations, but also within the environments of their companies, given the corporate culture that can exist as well. So with that, let me pass it back to Karina as we speak to some of the multicultural collaboration challenges.
So as Brian described there, the cross-cultural issues are numerous, especially when you're driving an innovation project around collaboration. And so the challenge becomes, then how do you build trust? How do you engage across cultural teams? How do you manage conflict in a sense and encourage more knowledge sharing, more risk-taking? These challenges have been present for a pretty long time and become even more challenging when you're dealing with a digitally connected environment, remote teams, and again, working with different countries and regions. And so you want to think about, because it's really about performance, or what I would call GLOCAL performance, so how to get the most from the team across the world, how to optimize local talent and knowledge, but ensure that translates into high team and project performance. And so typically what we'll see as an innovation leader who's driving an initiative or project, you'll see that throughout every single phase of the innovation cycle, that there are cross-cultural considerations that you need to consider. And if you look at the very start from market insights, going out into those local markets, embedding yourself, understanding what's happening in those contexts, to do the proper research, to understand that environment, to have the cultural intelligence, to connect with your local teams and customers. It can be a great challenge if you don't have the sensitivity or the communication and listening skills that are needed to connect with those local customers and team. And we've heard many horror stories. I can share many. Got a growing list from well-known names like Apple, Samsung, Cisco, Toyota, Gucci, Versace, who just didn't pay attention. Even Apple in the early days of introducing the iPhone and in China didn't pay attention to these considerations and felt that, well, we'll just transfer our global platform for the iPhone. We'll transfer the same model to the Chinese market, and it's going to be a big success, just like it is in North America and Europe. But that wasn't the case. And Apple learned very quickly that they had to pay attention to those local considerations in terms of very different practices, of course, language considerations, and then cultural preferences. And so what becomes important then as you're moving through this phase, doing the research, connecting, optimizing the knowledge of local teams, is to really pay attention to those signals and what is important. And then as you move to concept creation, what are the international requirements? So again, many stories of failed solutions because they didn't pay attention to that and started with the universal model or concept design from Cisco, who made the mistake of not adapting their routers, the size of the routers and requirements of the routers for different countries, and to IKEA furniture. When IKEA launched into the US market and their designs, they didn't pay attention to what were size norms in the US, for example, from Europe to the US. So there were funny moments or experiences where, for example, what was designed as a vase was seen as drinking glasses in the US. So looking at these norms, looking at use, again, paying attention to that. And the list goes on to most recently for Mercedes, Toyota, who had made big mistakes in terms of design and adapting to markets, especially in Asia. So that needs to be considered in concept creation. Then moving into the phase of strategic planning, how to engage teams locally, because they have that competitive knowledge, that very crucial knowledge that you need about those local customers, about practices, about competitors. So how to tap into and ensure they can share the critical knowledge that you need to ensure a sound plan, and move into the execution phase, which is all about marketing and sales readiness. And there it's looking at, well, how to ensure that all of the local teams around the world have the knowledge they need to market and sell, the training to market and sell to the local customers, and also to ensure that that is adapted to those markets. And we've also heard the hilarious messaging issues or failures, especially lately from luxury companies like Gucci, Versace, who in Asia and China, who failed in terms of messaging because they didn't ensure it was the right context. They translated the words literally into Mandarin Chinese. So again, that all of this impacts global sales performance. So it's very important at every phase to consider how you as a leader will adapt to that phase and connect with local teams around the world and ensure that you can optimize knowledge with the global lead or distributed team, the cross-cultural team. And so as a leader, achieving global success, very simply sharing research from my global studies, achieving success is really about inspiring cultural empathy. So from the very beginning, market insights and research, how are you paying attention to local knowledge and spending time in those markets and with the local teams to gather essential knowledge that will be important in creating new solutions. And then the concept creation phase, how to ensure a more inclusive design process. How are you integrating international local considerations within the design process? And then moving into strategic planning, how can you empower local teams to share more knowledge and not that it's only coming from headquarters, it's top down and being pushed out, but how can you integrate and engage key members of your regional teams, local teams to share critical knowledge for that plan, and then being ready, being responsive when you go to market for the execution phase and ensuring that you have your eyes and ears close to the ground, ensuring local market intelligence and being responsive to the teams and ensuring they have the resources and the knowledge they need to the day that you launch, and then you can ensure that you can elevate that global team performance and celebrate success, successful market introductions and solutions. So what that is about is as a leader to inspire strategic co-creation. So often what happens is that a lot of the front end activities happen in headquarters and get pushed out. Sometimes with some, companies will be successful in integrating that and involving, engaging local teams. But what is truly crucial is looking at the other side, or starting at the local level and starting there with your innovation process and truly spending time to understand the markets, the needs, and also ideas to encourage the ideas and initiatives from the local level that can then be integrated and brought back to the global or to headquarters or for the global leader to integrate this and develop a solution or innovation that truly speaks to local markets. And so sharing knowledge across cultures is quite different. And we don't look at this a lot. We talk about, how communication can be different across cultures and, hierarchies. And but we don't, and a lot of times we've used the Hofstede model to compare. But what we don't speak a lot about is knowledge. And that's so critical to innovation. How are you sharing your ideas, your knowledge across cultures? And that's very different. We see a lot of universal models, but then don't pay attention to, well, how is that communicated and how is that shared? How is that implemented? So for example, just very quickly, there are 3, or what I found in my research, 5 different areas that you need to pay attention to, and that's structure, power, openness, initiative, and response. So the first one around structure is really how your knowledge is organized and presented during the innovation process. So you could say, studying different teams around the world, you could see typically from often teams based in North America, Northern Europe, you see it's more linear, direct, and methodical as a process, how it's gathered, how it's organized, how it's presented. Whereas time that I spent in Asia, Latin America, you'll find it's more circular and indirect. There would be several conversations going around and addressing different points until they come together and to agree on a process. So it's you have to account for that. Then how, in a sense, are you creating a communication process that's comfortable for everyone? Power, knowledge status, and looking at the importance of knowledge to leaders and team members. Some view it as their expertise. So we have the view that, well, knowledge is good for the team. That's team empowerment, typical American view. Let's bring the team together, everyone together, and let's share that knowledge. And that's can only be good for innovation. We'll build upon this and co-create. Whereas I've found in some parts of Asia, I found in Korea and Japan, in China, that there is the knowledge of the leader that needs to be considered. So the leader can have that power to determine which ideas get shared, which ideas get vetted, which ideas could be move on, in a sense, the gatekeeper. And some experts within the team may not share at all because they feel that's a loss of power. So it's important there to think about, well, how are you creating a process that will encourage everyone to share, and that they'll feel safe, that this will it will allow recognition for everyone, and that it will contribute to valuable solution. So it's what I call idea hierarchy and decision hierarchy in terms of power. So idea hierarchy is how those ideas are vetted across cultures, and then decision, how those potential ideas or solutions are selected. There's openness. So how to build on ideas, how to create an openness where everyone feels safe and to share their ideas. And that can be very different across cultures. In Asia, there's a sense of saving face, to not want to cause conflict, and maybe a fear of not wanting to share certain ideas or perspectives. And whereas in the US, it's more about, yes, may the best idea win. So it's really creating that openness or safe environment where everyone can build on ideas. It's seen as building on each other's ideas. Initiative, this has been a big one. That you saw in the data that Brian was sharing, is the ability to take initiative or across the world. And that requires also a leader who can build a safe environment or create a safe environment, encourage more initiative, and also ensure that those ideas will be recognized and supported. A quick example from a colleague at Intel who left the US for China to build a team over there and develop new ideas, wanted to really have this very kind of a ideation, brainstorming session, and where everybody would contribute. And he went with that approach. Let's go, everyone, let's get those ideas out there, and the Post-it notes and everything. And the Chinese teams, local teams, looked at it and I'm very confused. And they said, well, that's not our role. That's your role as a leader. You're the one who's supposed to come with the ideas. And so again, thinking about, okay, how is this viewed as you're introducing new ideas? What is the best process? What's appropriate? And how to create that environment where everyone feels safe to share, that it's okay to share or initiate. And finally, response. How you as a leader are responding to those ideas, and framing your response so that it's maybe positive or constructive feedback, but it's also not seen as too positive or maybe too critical. And I know this from, you'd say a very typical or example of the spectrum, opposite spectrums may be the US way of providing feedback, which may be overly positive. You're not sure, okay, well, it's very good. I feel very confident, but to the French, which is more about being more critical. It's about building up your ideas and strengthening your ideas, which may not always be received positively. So it's looking at how to frame this, encouraging everyone. What's important to see is that national culture does affect knowledge sharing behaviors, and to pay attention to that. Another area also is looking at then how do we connect cross-cultural teams? So what are some of the solutions to look at? And with digital platforms and AI, there are more effective ways to connect the teams now. So using those smart platforms, ways to connect the teams. But then at that point, how do you as a leader become a knowledge facilitator? How do you facilitate that knowledge sharing? Because now it's about human interaction. It's about ensuring everybody feels safe within that space, and they have moments to connect within the innovation project to share those ideas and knowledge. And that leads to cross-cultural learning. How are they learning from each other and from different regions and markets? So it's about creating interactive workflows throughout the innovation process, ensuring you have the right collaborative tools that can encourage everyone to share and co-create within the same space, and even live forums and communities to create. Airbus has been very good at this in developing ecosystems. So according to teams' interests, so across functions, across the world, across cultures, they can develop these small communities or ecosystems and share knowledge continuously. It's really about how can you encourage spontaneous sharing, whether it's at the water cooler or it's at the, for a live chat or pop-up meeting. How can you encourage that? And I'm going to leave that to Brian to talk a little bit more then. How does that shape an innovation culture?
So importantly, as a leader, part of your role is to ensure that people feel that their ideas, thoughts, and activities are appreciated and are important contributors to the work that's being done. So as leaders, it's important to ensure that you do have cultural empathy. You have an appreciation for ideas and creativity and the genuineness of what those ideas are being sourced from, and the importance of then collaborating and building on each other's ideas so that you can create a team culture that relishes in being open and honest with each other, in being entrepreneurial and looking for the opportunities that others may not necessarily see, and being able to feel free to speak up and present those ideas in an open environment, so that you as the leader can be supportive of those ideas, bring them forward, allow them to be vetted, to be built upon, and thought through, and then ultimately tested. And I think in doing so, that allows you to be responsive to the individuals within the team, the teams and their respective markets, customers, that all that input is being acknowledged, appreciated, and actually utilized within the development process and assessment process of your innovation initiative. So as you then move forward into the innovation development process, you've got, as everyone likely has, some form of typical stage gate process, and importantly at the front end, in front of the front end, that really needs to inform the ideation and planning process is what is the company innovation strategy? What is it that we're trying to achieve with innovation for the company, for the categories that we would participate in, and for the brand? And I would definitely be a marketeer who subscribes to the philosophy that innovation should be brand led. Innovation should not occur in a vacuum. It should be in service to ultimately enhancing or bringing a new brand promise to market to address a new business and consumer opportunity. So I think as you move through the front end of innovation and ultimately get prepared for launch and bringing that product to market, I think it's ultimately very, very important to, as early on in the process, get local input, local thinking, local alignment to the initiative, and understanding how each of those markets may have to bring the initiative to market slightly differently. And in doing so, I think it's important that you move from this model being a purely sequential model to this model actually has to have concurrent activities. And thinking about the launch preparation, even before you know what the final design of the product is, I think is important, because you would have hypothesis as to what channels, what customers are likely going to be able to take that to market for you. Getting their input earlier on can in fact change the design or the ultimate packaging of the product that you're going to bring forward. So getting to the executional components earlier on allows you to use that as a feedback cycle into the planning and validation points, and therefore allow you to look at piloting, testing, determine what a lead market may be before you go to a full worldwide introduction, so that you understand where some of the positive components are, or some of the weaknesses may be, before you actually execute that full global launch. So for me, that also means really understanding what are some of the hard and soft points that you bring forward to an initiative. Being the hard point being, here's the things that cannot or must not change as it is brought to the global. However, there are some soft points that do have local customization and opportunity to make more relevant for local markets, and those should be identified, and the local market should have the opportunity to execute against that. That may be, for example, SKU configuration, it might be fragrance, it might be color, it might be other aspects that are not necessarily a hard point with the initiative, but are much more culturally and locally relevant. So in facilitating that, I think it's important for global leaders to, exhibit leadership across the various functions and global teams, ensure that you've got full communication and communicating in a not only in a style but in a frequency that people understand what the progress is on the initiative, and ensuring that you've got alignment through that process, so that you don't come to the end and have individuals or teams that are either unaware or unaligned to the initiative as you get ready for launch and a worldwide introduction. So with that, let me pass it back to you, Karina.
Great. Thanks, Brian. So we bring that together in this framework, our Global Innovation Readiness Framework, and which is based on a decade of research with multinationals, SMEs, and NGOs who with leaders who are responsible for global innovation projects and initiatives involving products, services, and programs, and responsible for cross-cultural and remote teams. A lot of these organizations were in the tech industry, but lately, in the last few years, we've also surveyed organizations across industries, because everyone is now digital. And so what we're looking at, what I'd like to share with you, we'd like to share with you, is a framework that can facilitate your role as an innovation leader and leading initiatives across the world, and looking at the cycle at every phase, how you, what you need to consider in terms of creating more engagement, more inclusion with your teams around the world. And so that starts from the very beginning, from the creation phase, and looking at how, not only how you're performing research, how you're developing the ideas, how you're engaging the teams, to the planning phase, and how you can integrate critical knowledge from those markets through validation, how you're able to develop concepts that are considering international and local requirements. And then go to market. Then how are you ensuring that every team around the world is ready to go? You have marketing and sales readiness is there, and they're able to not only market but sell the solution to those local customers. And that leads to high performance, ensuring that you're globally ready and you can succeed in these international markets. But not that also needs to consider the three levers that you see in the middle. So how then are you ensuring an inclusive vision through leadership that is inspiring, that is culturally intelligent, and that can develop the innovation process through strategic co-creation. So it has this approach of co-creation with cross-cultural and international teams, which then leads to an inclusive dialogue, how to then connect teams around the world to facilitate collaboration, encourage knowledge sharing, create those moments of sharing knowledge, and then ultimately learning from that. Emphasizing cross-cultural learning. You have organizations such as Airbnb is a great example through the years and up to now, have always ensured that they can optimize their global digital platforms, ensuring meetings, international meetings with their teams around the world, and having them share their success stories, their wins, so that there's cross-cultural learning and looking at, well, what was successful in Brazil could be considered in Thailand, or how can we adapt that to other countries? And even if you look at the vision aspect of it, Philips, I've been a big admirer of Philips because they train their leaders from the very beginning, from the time they're hired in this design thinking and strategic co-creation approach, which means that leaders are encouraged to go locally, travel locally to those markets, engage with them from the very beginning of the innovation process to develop a truly global or local solution, and I spoke recently to them now because everything is so focused on digital platforms and collaboration, and they're now adapting that model also to the digital realm. And so as you move around that cycle, what becomes important then, you have the vision as a leader, you're engaging the team, you're inspiring them to co-create, and doing that through increased knowledge sharing and cross-cultural learning. That ultimately creates a global innovation, a thriving space where everyone feels open or comfortable to share and encourage or welcome knowledge from their colleagues around the world. And ultimately, that's what we call a global innovation culture and team climate. And often I've seen, maybe a good example would be Wipro. They have been at the forefront for many years around creating new tech platforms, encouraging internal crowdsourcing. My favorite is looking at what they call a digital pod. And so they'll have a 24-hour pod where they encourage their employees from around the world to solve a wicked problem. And then they will basically move around the world as the sun sets, starting in Asia, and develop that and problem solve and contribute their ideas until they found a viable solution that can speak to several markets. So our question to you now is, are you global launch ready? So we'd like to know and bring the question to you and hear from you, your perspective, your stories, your context. But we have 3 questions to kind of put you into that space. And that is, do you have a global vision and plan that is shared by teams worldwide? So think carefully about your most recent initiative, international initiative, could be recently launched or currently in progress. Consider, do you have the vision and plan that's shared by the teams? Number 2, are teams and regions aligned across functions and cultures? And 3, are your teams ready to communicate and execute in every geographic location? So with that, I'm going to ask you to click on the quiz. We have like a 1-2 minute quiz, and we'd like you to think about your most recent international initiative and answer just 10 questions. They're really easy to answer. Can everybody click on that, or do I need to give you the link maybe in the chat box?
Chat box would be good.
Let's see if I can get that in there. Oh, I got the wrong link. Okay, hold on just a minute. Sorry. Let's see if I can just grab. I'm going to have to. Sorry. There we go. Let me just do the cut and paste. Uh-oh. Is that going to work? Yeah, that should work. Did everybody get the link?
Yes, it's in the box.
All right. So we'll give you a minute to answer and see how you score. It's our global readiness scorecard. So we'll see how you do.
You grade on a curve, Karina?
We're going to find out. We're going to get to, hopefully you'll share. You'll want to share. So we're going to ask everybody to share their score in just a moment, just giving you a few more seconds. Make sure everybody's ready. I think you need, it's only been 30 seconds. Okay, we're going to give you a full minute. Is everybody done?
I'm not getting the link, but don't wait for me.
Wait a few more seconds. Has everybody completed the scorecard challenge? Let's see the chat. Okay, so for those who took the scorecard, are you ready? I'm going to ask you to enter your score in the chat box. Enter your score. Everybody's a winner here, so it's just scoring you on different levels. I'm not seeing any scores. How's everybody doing out there? Okay, we got one. All right. Thanks, Bill, for being the daring one to go first. We need more. Okay. Oh, Michael, who's got very specific scores for us. Lynn, too. Great. Okay. A few more. I know we have a few who have to exit. We got a few more scores out there before we end. All right, is that it? Or closing? Any more? One more? Two more? All right.
I got an 8.
Okay, so do you want to type that in? And then we've got, okay, we've got a couple 8s there. All right, so let's see what this means for everybody. Brian, you got your 8 in there?
Oops.
We have a lot of shy people out there. Did you make sure you enter your score? All right, so let's see what this means. So very quickly, how did you score? What's your readiness score? Did we have any global readiness champions out there? I'm not sure if I saw any. So this means you are all set to go. All systems are go. You're ready to launch your global product or service. You may need just a bit of fine tuning, but it seems that you have the structure and the process in place and your teams are aligned around the world. I saw a few future Globetrotters, so a few 8s out there. So that means you're making excellent progress. You're on your way. You have a process in place. You're getting closer to alignment. You better check a few steps to ensure that you're going to make a successful launch. Global accelerators. So we have, I think I saw 1 or 2. It means you're making good progress. You have a plan in place. You're starting to develop and align the process, but you might need more resources, more support to ensure that you're on track and connected with teams around the world. And finally, I know we had a few World Cruise planners scored 4, and that means that you're in the starting gate. You're doing great because you do have a plan and you have a vision. You know where you're going to go, where your world destination, but you still need to get all hands on deck. Still need to develop more connections and alignment with the teams and the regions, and ensure that you have a process in place. So looking at your readiness scores, and we'll do this as an open discussion for time consideration. And what we'd like to share with you is the Global Innovation Readiness Compass, and which will provide you in the chat as well as email to you. And this is more of a compass tool to help you translate the score. So your readiness score, translate that into some tangible steps. What do you need to address? What did you see as gaps? Was it under vision? Was it under dialogue, space, or launch? So depending on how you scored, you may have seen, okay, maybe I have a low score under vision. What do I need to consider there? And look at inclusive leadership or strategic co-creation. What is one area that you want to address? And you would want to put that in the inside quadrant. And then for the outside quadrant, what are potential steps or solutions that you'd want to consider? Anybody for vision? Anybody come up with vision maybe as an area they want to address? And then the second area is dialogue, same thing there. Did you feel that you scored lower, or you need to address knowledge sharing or cross-cultural learning? So on the inside quadrant, indicate what you want to address, and then what would be potential solution outside the quadrant. And then for space, looking at, is there concern about innovation culture or the creative team climate? So think about what do you want to address there, and again, kind of what kind of solutions you'd want to consider, and then how does that finally apply to launch? Are there any missing gaps now that you need before you go into launch mode, and ensuring that everything is aligned, your execution ready, your global launch ready? And so we'll give you a copy of this Canvas map, and so you can play around with it. And we'd enjoy your feedback as well. You know, how may the scorecard help you, and how could you apply that to this Canvas map? And with that, I think Brian will open up for questions, maybe.
Yes, looking forward to seeing what kind of questions people may have, comments. Happy to address them.
I have a question. I don't know how to phrase it exactly. But do you see that there's a certain stages that companies go through? So first they get this done, then they get this done, and then they get that done? Or are you supposed to be working on all the different things at the same time?
More how the cycle, the phases go. So you see as you're starting out, the research, getting the market insights, then going into concept creation. So kind of.
So the question would be, are most of the people 0 to 4 because they're poor in the same areas, or so is there a stage of development where you would develop in a certain way? So your foundations are this, your second level's this, your third level's that. I don't know if that makes sense as a question. It's just the question is, do your capabilities tend to develop together at the same time? And would you have a process to go through this based on where somebody is?
Yeah. And so what happens often is that to identify the gaps and mapping that out, and then looking at what is required for each phase. So looking at leadership development in terms of vision, how to create more engagement with your teams. So leadership training, and also tool and a process to engage those cross-cultural teams. We also have strategic co-creation process. So looking at, a strategic facilitation workshop. How can you facilitate that connection with the teams and start with a strong foundation? Then also some techniques, communication techniques that you could use, so ways to facilitate more knowledge sharing. So designing a process, co-designing with you a process to connect the teams throughout the innovation project, where they can share more knowledge, where they can learn from each other, promote cross-cultural learning. And then looking at then how does that promote a space? What are the elements that are important there for the innovation culture? And ultimately, if you have the first two down and you've been able to create that inclusive vision as a leader and promote and facilitate that dialogue, often that leads into creating this innovation culture. but you also need to ensure that you have the space and the process to move forward into execution mode. So we work a lot on process and training. So we're looking at competency skills that you need as a leader, but what might be also facilitation to ensure you have the right strategy and co-creation process, and then also designing that for you from concept to market. Brian, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
I guess my build would be just, from a personal experience perspective with my time both at InBev and Kimberly-Clark, I would say generally the greatest deficiencies, at least in my experience, have been more on the executional side. There tends to be a lot of organizational fatigue, especially for longer development processes. So everyone's been aligned earlier in the process. Then as you get to execution, sometimes people just want to get it out the door. But in fact, that is where most innovation, I would say, in my experience, tends to fail, is the lack of robust and sufficient planning around launch and execution. And a lot of that, I think, is due to organizational fatigue that the leader needs to ensure doesn't occur. And that needs to occur through ongoing, in particular, alignment and planning process, and starting that the launch execution planning process earlier, and getting, in particular, the commercial organizations involved sooner. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I think I'm back. Is everybody there?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Sorry, he's froze. Any other questions? I'm surprised you didn't ask about AI, to be honest, but it's nice to have a human-centric focus. And it's also interesting to see new technologies, but we're seeing them applied to the innovation process itself for internationalization, localization, translation of languages, but not so much to the human process of interacting and co-creating and collaborating. No other questions? It's all good? Okay, so I guess I'll summarize a bit here. I don't know what's going on with the screen. So let's go back to just kind of a summary for everyone, just to consider when you're going global or when you're going to lead international initiatives or an innovation project. Think about your role as a knowledge facilitator. So embracing that, how you can connect the teams, how you can facilitate that knowledge sharing and learning across cultures. And of course, especially in this environment, which is increasingly project and team driven, and digital platforms and tools. So it's important to make those connections on a regular basis and promote that dialogue. Whether it's like doing like Airbnb, where it's sharing practices of the world, or it's sharing either having team members share their cultures and what's happening, local practices, or even having different team members being able to lead different phases. So as a leader, it's really about listening, continuously listening, recognizing, responding to the needs of teams around the world. And again, ensuring you have a smart knowledge sharing platform that can help connect everyone and ensure that sharing and learning. So at the end of the day, it's really about optimizing collective intelligence of the global network and local ecosystems. So with that, we've come to the end of our journey. I don't know if we have any other questions. We hope you've enjoyed the global readiness journey. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to Brian or me. We also have can offer a free evaluation session or exchange if you want to go deeper and want to know more. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on our company page there. And then we'll also make sure to send you a copy of the slide deck and the Global Readiness Compass Map as well, for those of you who are interested. We had a lot registered for this webinar. We had like 110 registrants, but we lost quite a few. So I think people are enjoying the great weather and are maybe looking to connect and check out the video afterwards. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for coming to participate, for your feedback. And Brian, any last words from you?
To say thank you very much for joining us for the last hour. It's always great to engage with like-minded people in the innovation world. So thank you for your time, and Karina and I will be happy to engage with you at some point in the future if you've got any questions or thoughts, and look forward to that next opportunity.